Okay, so this is the second part to the book review. Well, it's not really a book review.
It's not a review.
Not a book review.
But if we were reviewing it, we would tell you it's excellent.
Yes. But the book, Marriage is Like Dancing, that we really enjoyed, we want to talk about another insert from the book and read another insert.
About the metaphor.
Yes.
Metaphor.
But it has to do with boundaries, and we want to talk about boundaries inside and outside of your marriage and how important they are. So this little section is called Facing Up to Your Problems, and I'm just going to read it. In dancing, problems arise due to both external environment and internal conflicts. I remember the first time my wife and I attended a dance outside the safe environment of our dance studio. At the studio, everyone was a learner and danced as poorly as we did, or remembered a time when they were learning and were therefore generous toward our faults. There were people there who had only 1 or 2 lessons before their first dance, and there were others who had decades of dance experience and were still attending studio dances for reasons of their own. But in the world of ballroom dance, where people came to enjoy a night of dancing, survival on the dance floor was a tangle of surprises for us at every turn. The environment on the dance floor can seem almost hostile at first. Barely would we begin a few steps when someone would move in front of us, causing us mentally to stumble in our novice attempts to do things right. After a few tries at joining the crowds, we set out the next dance. Once or twice, we went home discouraged. The first thing I had to learn in ballroom dancing is that public dancing is like driving on the freeway in rush hour. Because I love driving and was once given the compliment, in my view at least, that I drive like a New York cabbie. This metaphor helped me get perspective on dancing. You have to learn how to use the brakes as well as the accelerator, and unlike a New York cabbie, you have to be patient with those as well as with yourself. There are rules of the ballroom as there are rules off the road. And as in rush hour traffic, not everyone either knows or follows them. Okay, so that's the first little insert, and then there's another one over here that I'll read in a minute.
Okay.
Or should I just go ahead and read it all and then let's talk about it?
No, don't read it all because we'll never get back to it.
Okay. It kind of has to do with the same thing, but
that'll be a great reminder of stay on topic.
Okay.
And move on.
Okay. So, I think it's very important to have boundaries in your marriage. And boundaries, the first we'll talk about are boundaries outside of your marriage. And then we'll talk about the boundaries that you should have in your marriage.
Okay.
But this talking about, it was causing them mentally to stumble. And they were trying to do the right thing, and they were mentally stumbling, just trying to do the right thing. And then went home discouraged.
Was it because they were not prepared, or was it because it was just their first, like, real live action of trying to implement what they had learned?
It seemed to me like, since the next paragraph talked about rush hour and him being driving like a New York caddy, it made me, and then the
caddy like in golf, or cabbie like
cabbie?
in
I'm sorry, cabbie, not caddy, cabbie. There are rules off the ball. There are rules of the ballroom as there are rules off the road, and as in rush hour traffic, not everyone either knows or follows them. So it makes me think that people weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Maybe they were
other people, not them.
Yes.
Like they had learned the rules, they had practiced on how to do it, but then when they got out there into the real world, nobody was really doing it like they were supposed to be doing it, and it made it difficult for them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm following now what you're saying.
Right. So you can definitely relate that to the real world in marriage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And in boundaries.
Yeah.
And
so no matter how prepared you think you are, other people aren't going to play by the rules. Or they're not going to play, they're especially not going to play by your rules.
No, it's sad, but in today's world, more people want you to fall, to fail, to struggle, to stumble, than they want to see you succeed and be happy and have a successful marriage. And I'm not sure why. I don't understand that, but it's just how it is. I guess it's the devil. I guess it's evil. I don't know what it is, but people do not want you to succeed in your marriage.
I don't know that they want you to succeed at anything. If you were to go out and say, hey, I just got a new job and I'm making X amount of money, and if it's more than them, they're automatically turned off. Mm-hmm. If it's, you've got a better schedule than them, they're automatically resentful. If it's, you've got this or you've got that, that's better or you know, they think they deserved it or whatever. It's almost like a grieving process on their behalf if they find out somebody else is doing something better than them.
Right. Right. So what would you say a lot of the, do you mean to start as far
You're
as
going to
a lot of
interview
the,
me. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So, Mr. Chris Bolton.
Okay.
I needed a microphone. What would you say are some of the boundaries that you implement in your marriage that help keep you and your wife grounded and on track and continue to have a happy marriage? Sorry.
We read lots of books.
I said boundary.
We have no friends and we don't go anywhere. Aren't those boundaries? No. I think that what we have done a better job of is understanding more of our environment that we operate in. I was always naive, and people mean well. People really don't understand how they come across, or they really don't understand some things. I always gave everybody the benefit of the doubt and all these things. And not that I'm evil surmising now or just, walking out of my front door and assuming that the world is going to, fall around me. I think the older you get, the more you apply the wisdom and the knowledge that you try to gain in life, the more you can see the people who are around you who want to help you and the people who are around you that want to hurt you. I think you can kind of see that as you move through life. And if your eyes are open and you're not naive to the fact that you're a union, you're a marriage, which in today's society is fastly evaporating. People really don't even promote marriage anymore. People really don't encourage you to be married. They don't encourage you to be happily married. And if you were to be one of those people that say, I am happily married, people look at you like, what in the world are you talking about? Happily married? Those are oxymorons. You really have the opportunity to apply some things. And for us, we have read other books, and we'll I guess get to those or reference some of those materials later. But we have been exposed to other people who have ground rules. They have ground rules is kind of a sketchy word, isn't it? It's not really ground rules. It's more of boundaries that, for an example, you don't let yourself be put in a compromising position. You don't let yourself be with someone of the opposite sex alone in a position to where things, not that there's temptations involved, but that you don't allow temptations to evolve. You don't allow them to come about. For an example, for us, one of our boundaries that we have is I don't text females of, cell phones. I don't.
You're about to say females of the opposite sex.
Yeah, I almost said it. But in today's world, that probably would be applicable.
Yeah.
Females of the opposite sex is actually happening right now.
I know, that's sad. Yeah.
Wow.
And that, it's amazing, but that is something that a lot of people don't want to accept or don't understand. But and other people may do that, and it may be fine for them. And we're not saying that our boundaries should be your boundaries.
No.
Because if you're, this is definitely not a video to say that we think that that you should have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these should be your boundaries. And if you don't, your marriage is going to fail. We're not saying that, because you may have totally different boundaries of things that we don't bother us at all.
Yeah, our boundaries aren't your boundaries because we live in a different world than you do.
Right, but just from our experiences, from our past, and things that we have learned, there's just things that we do not do, and it's some people find it hard to accept, and some people probably think it's very odd and weird, and but we don't.
Well, when we read about some of these other people that we're referring to, it sounded weird to us too at first. And then the more you think about it and you think of the logic that is behind it, for an example, if I'm not texting somebody of the opposite sex, then I don't ever have to worry about something being said, something being addressed to me that I never wanted addressed to me, or that I never wanted to have to deal with, because I don't deal with it at all.
Well, I told a group of ladies one time, we were talking, and I brought up the example of, so when we were, well, we've already said you were a preacher. When we were in preacher school, I'll go ahead and say it. When we were in preacher school, there was a lot of rules and things that preachers need to watch out for, just, for obvious reasons. And, just like a preacher doesn't need to have a female in his office
by
themselves. Like I said, for obvious reasons. I mean, we're all adults here. We don't have to spell it out. And even for the fact of there not being a witness to say if this person has a bad motive and they go out saying, you're not going to believe what that preacher said to me. You're not going to believe the comment he made to me or what he said. And you have no defense.
Not even like something sexually inappropriate. Just anything inappropriate that could get you fired.
Anything.
That could ruin your reputation. Any of that kind of stuff.
So it just, kind of came to me when we were talking about texting. It's kind of the same thing. When you're texting on a phone, and it's just, you don't know if their spouse is around. You don't know if their spouse even knows that they're texting you. You don't know any of that, because you don't, sometimes you just don't even know the people well enough, and you don't know that anyway. And if you wouldn't sit with them in the office, just you and them one-on-one, why would you do it through a phone? Why do we think it's okay to do it through a phone? And then, I'll throw it about, on a messenger, Facebook Messenger. It amazes me, because it's like it's okay to do in certain situations. Well, it's not. It's not okay.
Boundaries are set for limitation. I mean, the word itself is a boundary. To relate it to something that I'm very familiar with, growing up on our farm, boundaries were fences. Well, fences were not impermeable. You could, of course, step across the fence. You could crawl through the fence. You could go under the fence. Depends on, if you were a little shaver, or if you were, an adolescent, or you're a full-grown man, whatever. I've done all of those in my lifetime. I've had to go under some, through some, and over some. But the fence was kind of the boundary line. I mean, we would call it a line because that's where, for example, our cows knew that's as far as they're going. Now, if a tree falls across the fence and the boundary is no longer there, we had to go gather them up. So boundaries are put in place for limitations. And it's not because you can't go beyond the boundary, it's that you choose not to. Mm-hmm. So for us, applying that boundary line has been, I'll give you an example. These little things right here, they can be so detrimental to your marriage. And
we're very, even though we're very open with our, we are very open with our phones, and it's, very open. That's another thing that can be an issue in a marriage. Big issue is the phones, but we are very open with our phones. We work together every day, so if somebody texts, each of us knows it. We're right there. I mean, we're not just hovering over the other person.
We're not hiding anything, nor are we trying to over-scrutinize.
But still, it's just, and also it's a level of respect, I think. And then another thing that, just to throw this out there, is that I, just to...
you first start preaching, ain't you? You talk about me being a preacher?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to throw it out there.
Okay.
In the boundaries, talking about boundaries, women are much worse in this situation. Women are much worse, and in my experience, in our experience, they just are, and I'm not really sure why, but they're more bold in their actions in trying to get away with certain things. And him talking about being naive earlier about certain situations, me being a woman myself, I can pretty much tell you that if you're a grown, yes, I'm a woman, if you're if you're a grown woman, and unless you know there's something going on. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, and you know what you're trying to do. Why are you looking like that? It's like, oh, she is preaching.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he would be naive because he's a man, because he's male, so he would be naive. But when you're a woman and you like in our past, you see things that women are doing, you can say they're not. I understand you're naive, but they're not. They know what they're doing. So you just have to constantly, just like this book says, they're trying to cause you to stumble all of the time. Somebody is trying to cause you to stumble, and you have to keep to your boundaries because they know. And men are not just. Women will text men a lot quicker than a man would text a woman. A man's not just going to text another man's wife. A woman will text another woman's husband. A lot quicker.
Why?
I don't know. Would you not agree with that statement?
Oh, I agree with the statement. I don't know why though. I mean, and maybe that's part of what makes a man. Part of that naive, mentality that I used to have. I would think that nobody would be, audacious enough to do something, to try to hurt somebody else or anything like that, because I guess men just tend to have a little bit more respect toward other men. Not always, and I'm not trying to lay down any proverbial statements that are always going to come true, but
I think that there are men out there that might have bad motives, but a woman has to give him some type of invitation, and unless she does, he's going to stay back, and
he's going to stay reserved.
He's going to be respectful, even if he has a bad motive mentally. He's going to be respectful physically, and he's not going to do anything with that, in front of that other husband, or to disrespect that other husband. Now, if the wife of that husband gives him some kind of invitation that he sees as a green light, and he has a bad motive, then he will pursue that. But he has to have a step. Women do not have to have that green light. They will push to try to get the green light. They do not have to have it. And I know this is raw, and I know he's probably sitting there right now. I can read his mind. Well, we said we can't read minds.
No.
We said that.
You
we can't
said
read
you
minds.
couldn't read minds. I never said you couldn't read minds, because I know for a fact that as I'm sitting
Maybe
here.
I was wrong for saying that, but I do know that he's probably sitting here thinking, whew, you are saying things that you should not say.
Smoking it up, baby.
But this is real, and this is raw, and this is real, and these are things, if you want to be involved in our discussions and what we talk about at home, and the discussions that we have when we're reading these books, this is what it is. And this is life. This is real life. You can be naive all you want. This is real life. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is real life.
To a certain degree, I'm not hesitant about you saying what you need to say. I think that men know what you're saying. What you're saying is ringing true to the people who are listening to this, and they're either dealing with this. Actually, what was going through my head was, if couples are sitting here watching this, you just threw a match in a powder keg. If it's happening, if it's going on, and something,
it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
So,
that's real too.
So I get that. Let me back up and regroup just a little bit with what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Men know what you're saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
They can see it. They know what that approach looks like. They hear that approach. They see that approach, whether they're at work, and there's a woman that's perusing, I guess would be the word I would use.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, what my experience has shown in what I've observed, what I've read, what we've talked about, is that the man is kind of in a position to where he doesn't really know how to handle certain things. So in the position of most men who don't know how to handle it, you need a boundary. You need to avoid this. You need to prepare yourself so that you're not dealing with it off the cuff if you're not prepared for it. Women, however, seem to be in a position to where, and men, I'm going to say this, if you have a woman perusing you and she knows you're married and she still is perusing you, that's the number one red flag that she's perusing somebody else too. She's looking, she may be a black widow looking to see who she can consume. She may be lonely and just trying to fill up her time with, talking to you. Nothing further than talk, but maybe the talk is entertaining. Maybe you're the, subject matter, you're the target, you're the whatever, and maybe you don't see it yet. These kinds of comments, these kinds of statements need to be made to you, because you may be like I was and just kind of being naive to everybody's goodness, But not everybody's got pure intentions. Not everybody's got, motives that you could, call home and tell your mom about. So my advice to you at this point of our life, Kelly will be 46 here in a little while.
No.
I'm 47. So if you're younger than us, your generation is different. I can tell you that we're raising children that are 24 and our oldest is 29, 24, and 22. So we have a little bit of experience in what we're trying to tell you from on the road of life. We can tell you some of these things, and we've lived through and survived a lot of this stuff. But if you're a man and you're perusing a married woman,
stop.
Not only stop, I need you to understand some things. Number one, you're fixing to and I think this is said more of women. Man, I have just got all over this. Let me.
Yes.
It's a sensitive subject. It's a very sensitive subject to try to handle it.
This should be, yes. Turn it around. Just say, women, if you're perusing.
That's what I was trying to get to.
A married man, stop.
You're going to destroy his home.
Go ahead.
You're going to destroy another woman. You're going to destroy a whole world for children. You're not thinking about the consequences of your decision to peruse someone who's married, and you're wreaking havoc upon lives for years and years and years. Now, men, if you're perusing someone and she's married, same applies to you. But this is one of those things that it's real. We know it happens. We have seen it happen. We have heard of some of our friends talking about these kinds of things, and it really does happen. But if you would set boundaries, it'll keep you out of those situations. It'll keep you away from bad motives. It'll keep you away from temptations. It'll keep you away from compromised positions. It'll help you stay where you're supposed to stay, and that's united in your marriage. Boundaries.
Right. And more, we didn't talk about a lot of our boundaries. I guess this video will be on the boundaries.
Well, you got about 4 minutes. We try to keep them at 27 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do the boundaries outside of our marriage, and then probably the next one we'll do the inside of our marriage, because there's a few more. We said the text. We were talking about text. We were talking about not being in compromising situations with somebody of the opposite sex by yourself, in places by yourself to where things could be said, or
whether or not they happened or not is irrelevant. If somebody says that, perception is reality.
Yes, you have to think about that. And I know that people will say, well, you don't trust anybody, or well, you're just walking around, worried about everybody, paranoid. Paranoid will be thrown. I'm sorry. Will be thrown up a lot. That you're paranoid.
You throwed it up when you
throwed
puked.
it up. Yeah, but it'll be thrown up to your face. It will be thrown up that you are different, that you're weird, that you're not social, all of these things. But it doesn't matter, and we don't care, because we've had our marriage dissolve, and we've spent years apart, and we've been able to get back together and have a second chance. And we don't care, honestly. I mean, I know that sounds heartless, but if you would listen to what we're saying and to this advice, it would really help you, and you may not go through the things that we had to go through, because people don't want to say these things. People want to, and yes, you can be trusting with people, but once that first red flag, you see the first red flag, you should have the boundaries anyway. But then when you see a red flag, you pull back and you adjust accordingly. And that's what we do, and we're on the same page this go around, to where we've had so many talks, read so many books, prayed so much, and we are on the same page. And so you do a lot of adjusting through your life accordingly with the people that come in your life and that you come in contact with. But the other thing, I was thinking of other boundaries that we have. Opposite friends of the opposite sex. I know that's a taboo subject too, because I know so many people now with social media and everything else that it's like, oh, you mean, you know, I have plenty of friends, coworkers, and plenty of friends with the opposite sex. It's not to say that you can't be nice and, you know, hey, how are you doing? Things like that. But it's just and this is our opinion and this is our boundaries once again. That may not be a boundary for you, but for us, it is a boundary that we don't, now if it's a couple and we're friends with the husband and the wife, that's one thing. We do things together, but we're not going to go out and have a meal with
someone of the opposite sex. We're not going to go to lunch with a coworker of the opposite sex.
No, we're
because
just not going to do that.
There's just a whole lot of danger in that too.
It's a lot of danger, and I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds old-fashioned. I know a lot of people will disagree, but it could lead to problems.
And I'll tell you something else that happens, especially with men. We love compliments. I mean, we really do. Men love to hear that they have done a good job. Men love to hear that they are good at something. Men love to hear that you helped them so much. Well, those compliments can be weaponized. They can be used to lead into kind of one-off conversations, or I feel like I'm helping so-and-so. Well, if you go and read enough of these counselor books, or you go look in enough of these resources that we're looking into, there are people in the field who use the weaponization of these things, and that's later in one of these chapters too, to where this guy that's writing this book right here talks about when they were in chaplain training school that was he in the military? What was it? A chaplain is a No, he's at a hospital. He was a chaplain at a hospital, and one of the people in the class was using and luring information out of people so that he could then weaponize it and use it against people. Well, people do that all the time. I mean, really, that happens all the time. So you tell somebody, hey, man, Kelly, we're having a rough time, and be
careful who you tell that to.
Yeah.
And do not tell that to the opposite sex. Somebody of the opposite sex. Go ahead. Sorry. I had to throw that in there.
No, I'm good with that.
Go ahead.
Oh, we're at 28 minutes.
Go ahead. You finish your sentence. Did you lose your train of thought?
No. I'm trying to figure out how I want to work. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. I think that's really what we're trying to tell you. Boundaries are meant for limitations. They're meant for you to be careful. And when you're walking out through the woods and you have no clear defined path, how do you know where there's going to be something that's going to get you? A snake, maybe a critter, whatever, step in a hole, twist your ankle, whatever. If you're not being careful, bad things happen. And you wouldn't go out on the water without a life jacket, close. You're not supposed to anyway. You wouldn't go, rock climbing without some kind of securing device. You just, At the end of the day, you know what danger looks like, and danger may look like, boy, I sure do appreciate what you've done. I sure do think the world of you. You sure are great this or that. That can be dangerous.
Does your wife know how lucky she is?
She don't. She's an old grouch.
Set boundaries and stick to them, and be prepared and talk about these. Talk about scenarios. Talk about scenarios. I know it sounds crazy, but talk about them with your spouse. If you have a healthy relationship,
if you want to build trust,
talk about what would we do in this situation? What would we do in that situation? Talk about it.
and if you want to build trust, let your spouse see that you see. Let your spouse see that you see the dangers that are lurking around you, and that you can actually be mindful of them and prevent some of those things from happening. And the more mindful you are of the dangers that are around you, the more mindful you can be to the escape route. So, you know, even if a boundary gets crossed, you still have an escape route. You still know where to go, you know? You still know how to get out of that situation. And, you know,
It's important.
It's important. It's important.
All right. Until next time.
Sorry about the touchiness of this one.
I'm not sorry.
If you done said you're sorry, not sorry. All right. If you survived this one, there'll be another one.